Hey everyone, Mrs. Spatola here, coming to you with a review. But before we get into our study guide review for today, we're going to just take a look at the answers on page 41, which was your homework from last night. Alrighty, so let's just go through this very quickly. Just a note at the top here, I would definitely put a Spatola bubble around this thing here. Time in a race, the smaller number is faster. If you're running a race, think about it. The smaller number is the faster number when you are running a race. And then the other little note here to take into account is to use your calculator. Very, very important. You should be checking with your calculator. If you need to use your calculator because you have difficulty with the math, with the addition, subtraction, or division, make sure you set up your problem first. You will get full credit if you set up the problem correctly. You cannot just punch numbers in your calculator. So be sure, set up the problem properly, line up your decimals. If it's adding or subtracting, line them up. You can go back and watch the previous videos if you need to. All right, number one, let's just go through these very, very quickly. Okay, because today is an awesome review. It's going to be a little bit longer, but I go into detail. You do not have to watch every single thing if you're okay with the concept. You can fast forward in your video. Alrighty, number one, how much faster does it take someone working in Chicago to get to work compared to Manhattan? If you take a look at that, the final answer was 4 8/10 minutes you had to subtract. Number two, which location has the quickest? Quickest, as I said earlier, is the faster time. So faster is smaller. They were asking you to compare Long Island or Manhattan. So you had to compare the two, and we found out that Long Island was the quickest. Alrighty, Bob wrote the problem on the board. Number three, what did he do wrong? Is he correct? He is not correct because he added instead of subtracted. So you just can't do it that way, okay? He added the numbers instead of subtracting. Number four was what Mrs. Spatola calls a hot question. Love these questions. This is a higher order thinking question. It's a challenge problem. It's a challenge, so it may be a little bit more difficult than usual. I always want you to try your best. Never, ever, ever give up. Try your best on this one. Well, for this one here, you needed to find the missing part. It was a two-step problem. So for that one, it was a two-step problem. And for that one there, you had to add up all the three numbers. You got a total of 965 centimeters. Then what you had to do was subtract that from the total that they had originally given you. So the fourth shim, the actual size of the fourth shim was 0 and 235 thousandths centimeters. Alrighty, next one here. If you continue and take a look at number 15, and here is the answer to number 15, $15.67. It was a two-step problem. You had to add the gum and the water together for a total of $4.09, and then subtract that from the 1976 for a total of $15.67. Number six, why can you rewrite 4 7/10 as 4 70/100ths? The answer to that is because they are equivalent. Adding or annexing zeros to the right of the decimal does not change the value. And very last question, why is it important to line up the decimals when adding and subtracting? It is important so you get the correct answer. Line them up, line them up. Hey, Mrs. Spatola here. Today we're going to actually be preparing for our first unit exam. So as you can see, this page here, we're on page 48, Unit 1 Study Guide, Number Sense. So these study guides are something that I had put together over the years, and it's really going to be a wonderful tool for you to use to help you to prepare for your unit exam. So if you notice on the left side of the study guide, each section has a title. And if you go down, we have place value, we have decimal place value, okay? We have decimal place value, we have rounding. And next to each concept is a full, detailed explanation to help you with the questions that are on the right side. So for example, the first section here is called place value. So in the place value section here, you can see we have all of the different periods, okay? And remember we use the trick, one time my brother tripped, to help us to recall the different periods. And then what you would do is complete each section and do the questions along with it. So for today's lesson, we are going to be completing the odd numbers, and the even numbers are going to be your homework. You're going to finish up. So we'll do some together. I'll model how they're completed, and then you will complete some more independent practice work on your own. Okay, so as you recall, as I'm looking back here on the left side, I see that place value here, place means where, value means how much, and the little key here means that that's something important. It's the backwards place value for the periods. Okay, we have the ones, the thousands, the millions, the billions, and the trillions. Each group of 3 digits, which is separated by a comma, is called a blank, and I left that blank on purpose. That is called if you recall, it's called a period. So you could write that in. Alrighty, so let's take a look at number 1. What is the place and the value of the underlined digit? The first thing that I would like to do is write the actual place values. Okay, I'd like to actually write the place values, which I know, one time my brother. All right, so as I go through, the place is where. So in what place is the 6? So if I use my place value chart that I just kind of completed here, I can see that this 6 here is in the billions place. So I'm going to write that in. So the place is the billions. Now the value is always a number. So the value is a number. So what is the value of that number? The value is, I can see a 6 followed by a comma. Now you could write 6 billion if you wanted to, or you could just write the 6, and Mrs. Gelderman always says, zero this out. So you could just simply write the remaining zeros and then transfer your answer to the actual answer line. And then we have 9 zeros. So the place is the billions. The value is 6 billion. All right, number 2, you're going to do on your own. Number 3, and boys and girls, if you'd like a little challenge, what you could do is try to complete them before I do, and then see if you're right. This would be a good way to see how well or how prepared you are for this particular test. All righty, let's go to number 3 here. And let's take a look at 3. Write the place and the value of the underlined digit. Now I see I'm in a decimal place value here. Very important. If you do slide to the other side, if you need extra practice, you can see here that the decimal place value chart is listed here. We have tenths, we have the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, and the 10,000ths. The 100,000ths is the last place. You really need to understand and memorize the decimal place value. Now look here, here's a little strategy. Write 1 for the decimal and a 0 for each place to the right of the decimal to read the number. Also remember that decimals end in THS. Here's a good example. Here's one here that's written for you. And you would read this as 34 7/10. Okay, let's slide over to the question. Write the place and the value of the underlined digit. So I see it's 2 places over. So I can see that 8, the place is the what? Hundredths place. Try to do this before I do to test and see how well you can do this. The hundredths place, what is the value? Now, all you have to do is write the actual 2 places over, 1 0, 2 places over, and there you go. The value of that underlined digit is 8 hundredths. Number 4, you're going to be doing on your own. Number 5, round each of the following, then put them in order from, very important here. Now be careful. Usually we're used to putting them in order from least to greatest. Remember, the directions are extremely important when you are taking a test or when you're doing any type of math problem. Good math students read the directions. Good math students take their time and they try to answer the question that is being asked in the actual question itself. So for these, I'm going to round. If I look at all of these place values that are underlined, I notice that they are all rounded to the hundredths place, sorry. And what I can do here is see that this here, these are all in the hundredths place, okay? So next thing I'm going to do now is round each to the nearest hundredths. So I see that this is 900. I see that this is 700. I see that this is, now be careful on this one is 1,000. And then I notice that this one here is 500. So now I'm going to put them in order from greatest to least. So now all I'm going to do is say which one is the biggest one. I notice that 1,000 is the largest. So I'm going to start with 1,000 because 1,000 is the largest. So it's 1,000. It didn't say here to use the greater than or less than sign, but here when it's greatest to least, you're going to use the greatest symbol to represent that that number is greater than the next number that follows. So here it's 1,000 is greater than 900. I did this, greater than that. I see is greater than 700. And lastly, greater than 500. And there you have it. So you're going to try number 6 on your own. Number 7, okay, you're doing the evens for homework. Number 7, round each to the nearest hundred, then put them in order from least to greatest. I'm going to leave that one for you also to do. I'm going to leave that one for you to do as well. Into word form. Now as we take a look at the next page, page 49, we look at the left side. I notice that for the topics, it says ways to express and write numbers. We have this word form, standard form, expanded form, short word form. So these are good review topics. If we go down, it shows how to convert decimals to fractions, how to convert decimals to mixed numbers, how to convert fractions to decimals when we see and say. Number 9, we're going to go back up to the page now. Number 9. Write in standard form. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these words and you're going to translate them basically. Go back here. Oops. So I'm going to go back into word form. I'll get this new app down before you know it, boys and girls. Don't worry. All right. So write in standard form. Let's take a look how this works here. 76 trillion, 320 billion, 5 million, 15,139. So before I start to translate into standard form, I read the number first and I try to process and see how far the numbers are going to go. So having my little strategy, I'm going to first start with my period titles. One time my brother tripped. And now I'm going to insert them. 76 trillion. So I have 76, comma. Notice after the trillion, there is a comma. You have to put the comma. It's kind of like a hint. It shows you after the word trillion, you have to have a comma after the number. 320 billion. 320 billion, comma, 5 million. This is where it gets a little tricky. I'm not just going to write a 5. I know that I have to have 3 places in each period. So I'm going to fill those places there with zeros, and there I have it, 5 million. Now same with the thousands. 15,000, I'm going to put a 0. 15,000, and then finally 139. And there you have it. Okay. Next, number 11. It says write in word form. So you could write it in word form. I'm actually going to go ahead and do number 12 for you. I'm going to have you do number 11 on your own. But when you're writing it, 1 time my brother. So if I were to write it, it should be 196,247,319,042. Remember, we do not say the and unless we see a decimal. So for number 12, write in word form. So if I look at this number here, it's 88, and here's my decimal, 888, 3 places, thousandths. Okay, thousandths. So I'm going to go ahead and write it. So it's 88 and, so it's 88 and you can see 88 and 888. Cross this out. Let's take a look at the next one, number 13. The directions change for each category, boys and girls, so make sure you're looking at the directions. Change the decimals to fractions. If I forget how to change the directions, I can look here. Write the decimal number, draw a fraction bar below it. Below each digit, write a 0. Put a 1 in front to the left of the zeros, and that becomes the place value for your denominator. Simplify if possible. This one here, don't make yourself crazy about simplifying. We'll focus on that on a later chapter, later unit. So let's go to number 13, change the decimals to fractions. Let's take a look. We have 13, so 2 places, so watch how this works. I put the 13 on the top, 2 places, 2 zeros, put a 1 in front, and I'm done. 13 hundredths. Number 15, I'm going to put my fraction bar. Remember, fractions mean what operation? Good. Fractions mean division. Divide, divide, divide. For number 15, we read it as 635 thousandths. How many places are there? 1, 2, 3. So I know I have to have 1, 2, 3 zeros in my denominator. And then I just put the 635 on top. Let's go down to number 17. Number 17 says change the decimals to mixed numbers. Okay, decimals to mixed numbers. Now, this was a little tricky for some boys and girls, okay? And when we convert decimals to mixed numbers, we write the whole number, and then we just follow the steps for decimal to fraction. Here is a really good example. Right next to it here is a really good example, okay? So if you have 2 and 7/10, we write the 2 first, and then we just write the fractions. Decimal 7 is read as 7/10, so we put the 7 over the 10. This is a little bit easier. You do not have to put it in simplest form. Okay, you do not have to put it in simplest form at this time. So let's take a look. Ready? Number 17, 3 and 6/10. So basically that looks like 3 and 6 over 10. Done. Let's go to number 19, 5 and. So it's 5 and we have 2 places, 2 zeros, 100, 6 over 100. And there you have it. Lastly, here's the part that seems to give everybody a difficult time. This part here for number 21, we're going to change the fractions to decimals. Now, you could simply divide, but for this particular one, if it ends in 10, 100, or 1,000, all you have to do for that is, if you know your decimal place value, notice I put it below here. If you know your decimal place value, all you have to do is write it in. So if it's 25 hundredths, remember the see and say? We talked about this in class. See and say, we see it, we say it, we write it. So this is 25 over 100. Well, how would we read that? 25 hundredths. If you know your decimal place value, very, very important. If you know your decimal place value, okay, you're going to put the 0 here, 25 hundredths, 25 hundredths. 2 zeros, 2 places, just so you see. It's very similar to that. So it's 0 and 25 hundredths. If you have already completed the even problems, You can go ahead and check your answers. I'm going to post them now. If not, pause this video and make sure all your evens are done. Lastly, we have on page 50 our remaining topics, which are convert fractions to decimals, box top, convert mixed numbers to decimals, and down here we have rounding decimals. Again, when you are using the study guides, on the left side, you will always find most of the information with the steps of each particular concept. So, for example, convert fractions to decimals will be on your left side, which is over here, and then some example problems will be on your right. So let's just take a look really quick here. We're going to take a look at converting fractions or changing fractions to decimals using division. So what you want to do is look at the first one, number 23, 3/4. Really, what does that mean? Well, fractions mean division, so it honestly means set up your problem as 3 divided by 4. We take that top number, the numerator, and we divide that by the denominator. So we just take this number on the top, and then we just simply go from the top box to the bottom. And we set it up here. And then you can go ahead and do your division. Pause and do the division. And there you see that 3/4 written as a decimal is 0 and 75 hundredths. Again, that's a very popular fraction. Number 25 is 1/8. Something special about the denominator 8. When you see a denominator of 8, boys and girls, I will tell you that most of the time your answer will have 3 digits to the right of the decimal. So when I set this up as 1/8, I'm going to set it up as my division problem. I'm going to put my decimal and 3 annex 3 places to the right. Go ahead and do your division. And there you have 1/8 is equivalent to 0 and 125 thousandths. Let's go on to the next one. Now we're going to look at number 27. Change the mixed numbers to decimals. This can be a little tricky for some boys and girls, and again, you definitely want to make sure you are looking at the directions. Convert mixed numbers to decimals. You're going to write the whole number first. Okay, you're going to write the whole number first, and then you are going to place a decimal after the whole number, and then follow the directions for the fraction to decimal. So let's take a look at number 27. We'll go ahead and do that together. This was a basic one, 7 and 9/10. That's how I would read it. So I'm going to say it in that same manner. 7 and 9/10. Remember, 1 0, 1 place to the right of the decimal. Now let's look at the next one, number 29. Let's scoot over here. Now 5 and 3/20. There's a couple of different ways we could do it. If you feel most comfortable, you can definitely simply continue with the division. I'm going to start with my 5 and, so this goes here, 5 and now I'm going to take this 3/20 and turn it into a decimal. I'm going to divide, if you remember, my numerator here goes into my division box with the decimal, annex is 0. I'm going to actually put 2 and go ahead and do the division. Pause the video, do the division. Okay, so when you do the division, you will see that the fraction 3/20 written as a decimal is 5 and 15 hundredths. Just a little note here. You can also take that 3/20 and multiply the numerator and denominator by 5/5 to get 15/100, and that place value often is a good clue for some of the boys to simply change it to a decimal. Let's actually take a look at problem number 30. It says, which number is closest when estimated to the nearest whole number? When estimated to the nearest whole number. So if I take a look at that, which number is closest to 200? I have to estimate, boys and girls, a strategy. Notice there's a little star here. Guess where you're going to see that this week? You betcha, something similar on your unit test. What you're going to do for each one, though, is round each one to the nearest whole number first, okay? The nearest whole number is going to be the ones place. So hopefully you did that for each of the numbers and just didn't guess. So let's pause the video and go ahead and round each one. After you've rounded them all, you can see that the best choice for number 30 was choice C. Now, if you slide over to problem number 31, you will notice that it says justify, explain, and prove your response to problem. This should say problem number 30, not 31, so please make that correction. So for now, take a look and see how you could use your words to best explain. And you can see your answer and justification there. 33 says, Mrs. Spatola ate 8/10 of a Kit Kat bar. Write the decimal as a fraction. Well, we know our decimal place value, hopefully very well by this point. 8/10, I know, is 8/10. For number 34, that is a race. And one of the things we've talked about is that in a race, the fastest is the smallest number. So just be really careful when you're organizing your time. At this point, stop the video. I'm going to put all the answers in, and when you're done completing all the even numbers, you should be complete with this entire lesson, and you should feel really good and prepared for your unit test. Have a great day. And there you have your answers.